I love it.
Yeah. Hey, Jade, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh
This
my
is so
God.
exciting.
I'm so excited. So clearly owning Manhattan, kind of a big deal right now.
Oh my God, that makes me so happy. I was literally refreshing it
Mhm.
every single morning. I'm like, okay, are we number one? Are we top 10? Are
Mhm.
we top five?
Yeah.
And I had a feeling we were gonna be top three.
Hmm. You know,
Yeah. Well, I manifested it. I like to think.
you did. Of course you did. I mean, so I'm a Bravo girly, million dollar listing, New York, watched since like back in the day. I lived in New York for about 5 years.
Hmm.
And so totally was like when I saw the previews, I was like, I'm here for this, love it, all the things. And then in watching the show, I was like, oh, this is a vibe. This is like an up-leveled vibe of what we need right now in this genre, in this way. So loved all of that. And then immediately when you came on and I think you were staging or Palo Santoing or something, and then just even claiming the work that you do and the ways that you invest in yourself. That's what appealed to me more so. It's not just about, oh, I'm into astrology or, oh, look, I love these little spiritual gadgets. It's like, I understand that part of my success, part of my well-being is investing in myself. And these are the ways that I invest. And these are the ways that I value working with people so that I can have a better relationship with myself and then bring that out into the world, work, whatever it may be.
Yeah, completely. It's funny because I think like, once you get to a certain successful, I would say like community,
Mhm.
kind of like everybody has some sort of coach.
Yeah.
A lot of people have astrologists. Like it's kind of like normal once you get to that like
Hmm.
level of
Peak.
success because I would say that, you have so many things being pulled at you all times. There's, between like stress, there's people that you don't know, and you just need every sort of eh, like guidance on all frames where it's at the level of okay business. You need guidance on like the emotional level. You need, like it's so easy to venture into greed or anger
Sure.
or all emotions, and whenever it's your business, this is your life, you sort of like need those coaching, and that's kind of one of the things that I thought was really important to kind of um, attribute a lot of my success on the show, in general, to life
Mhm.
is teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the best. And I did dig into your chart. So we are going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm saving it, saving the juice. To clarify though, you are a Pisces, Sun, Virgo, Moon, Libra rising.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I am a my Venus is in Aries,
Mhm.
which is like I love it, but it's fucking nuts being single. I'm like, wow, I love men, but like I'm also
Um,
bored.
I know. I know. One of my closest girlfriends, she's a Pisces Sun, Aries, Venus as well. And it took her a minute. She's in a committed relationship now, though, after, oh my gosh, she dated the most wild men ever. And
Oh my,
so yeah,
I
the
love it. I
most
want to hear the stories.
like I mean, nicknames like Jackhammer and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually have like a PowerPoint. I'm very organized. My
Mhm.
Virgo moon.
Yes.
I have a PowerPoint of all of the guys that I've dated, and I like to keep track to understand my patterns.
Amazing. Amazing. That's your strategy. So I'm a Leo Sun Moon Rising.
Hmm.
My strategy is I used to do stand up. And so that's how I archived all my dating stories. They would go into my comedy.
No, did they ever actually like come to your like sessions?
What I had one guy come once. That wasn't what the joke was about, but
I
it
love it.
was amazing to see. He literally was like right in the front row and didn't tell me. And I was like, all right, we're doing
Oh,
this. We're doing this.
did he find it funny? Like, were
He
you in?
did, yeah. And luckily, like this was a guy that like it wasn't ever anything like serious and it wasn't that big of a deal that he was there, but it definitely like threw me off for a moment. I was like, okay, hey Jay.
That is so funny. But like in stand-up, I'm guessing like you have to be like very spontaneous. You
You
need to
do.
know, like, okay, like quick
Yep.
on your feet. Ah,
Totally. A lot of it's improv. A lot of it's channeled, to be honest. It was like I was doing this before I got into comedy. Like I've always was like funny, right? And people are like, "Oh, you should do comedy." I'm like, "What does that even mean?" Right? Like, or, oh, like tell us a joke. I'm like, it doesn't really work that way, right? So then
not
like
on command.
yeah, like n no. So it's like you want a knock knock joke? 'Cause that's the best I can do right now. So when I started my work as a life coach, then it kind of morphed into spiritual astrology, and I was getting booked for like talks. And then I found that the rooms were just so serious, right? Like sometimes spirituality, it needs to be serious, don't get me wrong. And like when you're in certain containers, there needs to be integrity and respect and whatnot. But when it's more of like a speaking or a more open container, there does need to be laughter to help, navigate some of the heavier concepts and things. And so I found that when I was doing this work, spirit really like was like feeding me, or my main guides were like feeding me jokes or feeding me moments where I could make the crowd laugh. And then it just felt like, as entrepreneurs do, we're like, ooh, here's an opportunity. Let me turn this into something else. And so I think I'm going to be bringing it back. The pandemic kind of threw it off, but it used to be called "Does This Make Me Look Spiritual?" And it
I
was,
love that.
yeah,
Do you
and
do
it's,
it in person or is it online as well?
yeah, no. So some of it's online. I have some of the episodes on the podcast here, and I've done it in New York and different cities across the country, and it's always been really fun. And then, yeah, just got kind of, things get fallen off, whatnot. But I live in Austin now, and I'm like, I think I need to bring it back. It's
Please
time.
do, because
Yeah.
I do think that like spirituality, like people, it could be like very stigmatized. I like, everyone's like, oh, Jade, you're so like LA. And I'm like, maybe I guess it's
Sure.
like it's more common, but like
Yeah.
really in like certain communities and circles, it's like normal. Like kind of
Yes.
like everyone has like an astrologist,
Yeah.
like people talk like, Vedic or Western, and
Mhm.
then, everyone has some sort of coach. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's very interesting. I don't know like what I would do without that guidance. And I think it's like fun that you like actually make it funny and
Yeah.
interesting. It's not
Yeah.
all serious, especially when you
No.
the dark stuff.
Right. It's navigating through, the dark stuff, because otherwise that's why sometimes we stay in the darkness, right? We stay in the dark because it kind of holds us, and then we're in it. And then if we don't have, hopefully we have someone that can guide us with their light to help us kind of emerge, right? But if we don't, it's very easy to stay in that heaviness. That's another way that the darkness or the shadow energy can kind of keep a hold of you. And so with laughter or just having a good time, or like making literally light of things, it can be a huge game changer. And it's a reminder that, like, yes, and also it's okay to be like, we're ridiculous. It's okay that I was waiting until I saw a yellow butterfly to know if I should text that guy back or not. Or it's okay that I'm like geeking out that it's, 111 right now, or whatever it may be.
Oh my,
Yeah.
I feel like that's fun. It's like you have a life.
Mhm.
Like, yes, of course, like deal with those like tough emotions. I mean, that's kind of why I had so many different spiritual teachers at the same time. Because one thing that someone had told me, it's like, with a spiritual teacher, you should never have just one.
I agree.
'Cause, like, different perspectives. And
Yes.
sometimes, you know, with certain ones, like it got heavy. And it, maybe to them it wasn't, but for me,
Mhm.
I was going through a very difficult time. Like it's called the astrologist that I feature on the show. Her name's Diana. She's amazing. Um, you know, Off camera, it was like I was going through what's called a dark night of the soul,
Yes.
which is, I mean, it was fucking, sorry, like
No, yeah.
it
Swear.
was very difficult, And I was like, and it was such a juxtaposition because it was like I was going through the toughest moment of my life. I mean, my dad had dementia.
Mm.
I would, he, married so and so. I'm, in a legal thing with him to protect him. My husband, the best friend stuff that you see on the show, and it
Right.
was a lot. Um, but it's being on the other side of that now, I can see why it happened, and making light during that time was like needed. Like I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like I need some light energy. I need to like laugh.
Yeah.
I need to like
Yeah.
maybe like have some like good sex.
Yes.
Other guy, like I
Yeah, I'm a believer in all of that too. I'm like, if you need to get under somebody else to get over someone, it's fine. It really
yeah,
is. Just
yeah,
cut cords after.
yeah.
It's,
I read this book. It was very good. It was How to Release a Person.
mm,
And exactly what you said, it's about like cord cutting and releasing that and making sure
yeah.
it's still tied
Yeah.
to the
Yeah. And I think it's, about being any relationship. I think it's about being really intentional about the dynamic and the exchange, especially if it is sexual. I mean, at the end of the day, do whatever makes the most sense. But there are times where maybe we need a certain release or need to have a certain experience or need to feel expressed in some way. And maybe we don't have time to go on 10 dates with someone so that we can have that sexual experience. Sometimes,
Yeah. Well,
it's
I
a
would love
tequila shot and the back of a cab.
I would love your advice on that because like this is the first time that I've been single since like I've been 19 years old,
Okay.
which is wild. You know, I
Yeah.
like Tinder was like just a thing, JSwipe was like
Mhm.
just a thing. And now that I'm like in this like new dating world, obviously I'm also like on TV now. I'm like,
Right.
wait, I'm like, how do I navigate this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well, I think too, I mean, it goes back to what I just said, intention, right? So when it comes to dating right now, are you looking to, and I know that we can't always, just because we're like, oh, this is my intention, this is what's going to happen, right? You could say, I'm not looking for partnership at all, like in a long-term serious way. And then tomorrow you meet the person, right? But as things stand right now, when it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships, even when it just comes to sex, like what, what are you really looking for? What would feel most satisfying?
good conversation. I think like just like
Mm.
that energy of like the fun
Mm.
energy
The
is
connection.
like the flirty, the like the
Hmm.
excitement. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I'm a very bubbly, extroverted person.
Hmm.
Something that complements that is like just fun. Like I
Yeah.
think the fun part of it.
Yeah.
And spirituality is extremely important to me.
Hmm.
And somebody that just like I think is like uplifting and like I like doing my own thing,
Yeah,
you know, and like
for
having
sure.
really good conversation.
Hmm.
I think like the surface level conversations is something that like it's fine for some people, but
Yeah.
for like, you know, I will only go out with people that I can really have a conversation with and you
Yeah.
need to be, like passionate about something.
Hmm.
So those are the things that, you know, and I'm not looking for anything at the moment.
Right.
I'm kind of just like trying to ride this like new wave of exploring myself, you know. It's
Hmm.
new, you know, I'm in a new apartment. Like
New energy right there.
new energy. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I can, you know, leave my clothes on the couch for a
Right.
week if I want to. Like,
It's the best, right? You can do whatever you want. And that's also giving you a new taste of your own self.
yeah.
Whenever we move to a new environment, it shows us a different layer of who we are. We get to see a side of ourselves that we didn't even know existed.
Oh yeah, it's wild. And I think like that was like the toughest thing, you know, watching Owning Manhattan again,
Mhm.
seeing like episode, I think it was like episode 3, where, you know, like on screen, I'm seeing myself go through this tough moment. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh my God. I'm like, wait, that was me? Like,
Yeah.
holy moly. Like, I do a lot of, I think I said
Mhm.
it on the show, inner child
Yes.
work. And I was almost like, wow, like even, I mean, you know, I normally think about like my 45-year-old self giving, you know, a hug to, you know, this version or whatever. And I was like, wait, I was like, my 28-year-old self is giving like a hug to my
Yeah.
27-year-old self who was there. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, whoa, I was
Yeah,
in
it was a
love.
big deal. It was a big deal. It was not only, I thought it was really interesting when you started opening up about what was going on in your marriage, and then to add, the other dynamic on top. And another reason why I really related to you was the dynamic with Chloe, because I also had a friendship that was so similar. I have an episode on the podcast about it where best friends the first day we met, maid of honor at our wedding. But the more that I just the more I tried to show up for myself, or the more that I was becoming more of my own person, the more I felt like I was being questioned, or I was always being brought down, or there was always conflict because it wasn't about her. And it wasn't until I had a difficult situation in my life where, and people know about it, I'll just say it, like where I was assaulted by one of our mutual friends and she sided with him. And that was my moment where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I saw dynamics of that in your dynamic with Chloe. And I really felt for you because I actually saw myself through you in a lot of those moments. And that was a really therapeutic thing because I don't think I've really witnessed it in that way, in that dynamic. So thank you for that, actually.
Look,
Yeah.
if there's anything that I could do and any pain that I go through, if there's like a purpose to it where I can be like, hey, you can get through this.
Mhm.
Um, I think like the cheating stuff is that is hard and just like I think friendships, I think, in fairness, I'm a very like empathetic person. And I like hearing like that you went through that, like it just and seeing your success and how amazing you are and how like you can look back at that moment and be like, wow, all of those things were happening and it's like I've changed or I've evolved, I've grown, I've learned because of that. I think is really beautiful to see.
Mhm.
In that moment it's tough. I actually caught up with a really good friend of mine last night who has gone through the same thing, and it's so interesting. And I do have a lot of empathy for both people who, oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
we do.
Yeah, empathy for both people on either
Yeah,
side. I think that,
exactly.
like even, while I was going through the breakup, I I can acknowledge that, it was very hard and all of that stuff at the same time. My ex-husband is he's losing his wife,
Mhm.
his like, going all these ways.
Right.
And, I think it was like learning about how do I make space for myself while while acknowledging his feelings because this is someone who, I
Of course,
spent
you had love for. Yeah.
so it's I think that was like the biggest complication for me, I same thing with Chloe, I think that like I know how she is and like how she was raised and I have a lot of empathy for her too.
Mhm.
Like and I think that what we're working on off camera now that we're done filming is kind of just like how to like work on it, and how to same thing with my ex and
Yeah.
if I acknowledge, yes, I hold space for myself um, but I don't hold anger, I don't hold like resentment and I try to like always like remember like empathy for the other person.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important because we don't showcase that enough. And especially in the context of reality TV, it's very easy to just villainize or, cast judgment or whatever it may be. But whether it's reality or real life bleeding into reality or someone's life, that isn't on camera, we do need to have compassion. It's not saying that you have to bypass things or accept things that weren't right. But I do believe that there can be a middle ground. And then from there, you can decide what to do. My friend and I, we tried to work on it. We decided that we couldn't, and we went our separate ways. And that was what was best. But of course, whatever she's doing in her life, like I want the best for her and her family and her kids and whatever it may be. And I think that's really the goal. It's like, how can you stand up for yourself while
Yeah.
having empathy for the situation and peace of it all and not because I think if you're still holding on to anger then it's almost not even about them anymore. It's like what is it about you then that
Yeah.
is making a choice to still hold on to this in a resentful way or whatever it may be.
A million%. And it's almost like a learning experience. Like, I think
Totally.
maybe if I didn't go through all that stuff, I would not be the person right now who like actually stands up for myself. Like, I actually will speak my mind.
Mhm.
The dynamic in my marriage was very much like, you know, they call it like parent-child. It's like, financially supporting. It's, for me, I took on a very like traditional, well, semi-traditional, like I always worked because I
Sure.
I working. Like I
Yes. I'm
truly
the same way. Hmm.
oh my God,
Yeah,
it's the
it's the
best
best.
world, the
Mhm.
best
Yeah, it's
thing.
the best.
You
I'll
know,
always work.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And, for him, it was more about like, anything he said, I would agree with, even if I didn't. And,
Hmm.
whenever you kind of like build that dynamic for so many years, it it starts making it almost true.
Sure.
And, now that I'm out of it, I can stand up for myself and be like, you know what? I don't agree with you. This is X, this is Y.
Mhm.
And, again, I can love him, I can have
Of
love for
course.
him, I can wish him the best.
Mhm.
But standing my ground and being like, no, like I know what I'm saying. Like, and that's something that entire experience taught me.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And the thing is, too, if you didn't learn it in that dynamic, the universe has a great way of making sure to send you somebody else to be the teacher.
Oh man, do they? I still had like those lessons and I was like,
Mhm.
wow. And through the guidance of my spiritual
Yes.
team, they were like, Jade, this is like, this is a symptom. It's pushing you to become somebody that you need to become.
Yeah.
Because in the business world, in real estate, I'm very direct. Like
Mhm.
I I know what I'm saying because I mean
Sure.
I've been
Yeah.
in it.
You trust yourself as the expert.
Trust myself so much
Mhm.
because I know, but it's more about like, these relationships where I'm like, okay, like, am I wrong? Or did I do something?
Sure.
Or trying to
Yeah.
think, like, how are they feeling and how can I mold myself to that just to avoid conflict, which is
Hmm.
that we experience, people with, crazy childhoods,
Of
chaos.
course.
Sometimes we grow up and we just want peace. But
Exactly.
then we mold ourselves to always want peace and we work around situations that, we should really stand up for
Yeah.
ourselves. So I think
Yes.
that was the biggest thing that I learned through all these experiences were to have an opinion. And you know
Yeah.
what? The
Own it.
person on the side might learn something, and that'd be
Yes.
fucking cool.
Exactly. That's always the thing too. It's like, what are we keeping them safe from
Yeah.
by acting in this way? And another thing too that I had to really learn, well, the first step was like, I also had difficulty with boundaries and standing up for myself and always just kind of wanted to be like, yeah, keep the peace. If we can just be calm, that's cool. No big deal. It's fine. But then once I started standing up for myself and creating boundaries, that felt really good. And I started to get into a practice of that. But then it was like the next day when the guilt wanted to show up, right? Or like the energy that lingered of holding space for the boundary. And I found that that was an interesting extension of standing up for myself. So it's like you're going to stand up for yourself in the moment, and that's huge and incredible, and you should applaud yourself. And then how are you navigating the space afterwards? And I think that's really key to bring up as well, because it's very easy to then maybe regress or let the mind kind of take hold or try to get you to go back or like apologize or whatever. And it's like, no, if you made that choice to stand up for yourself, if you decided to set a boundary, the next best thing you can do is like hold it and love on it and treasure it and do not tear it back down.
Yeah, that's
So
beautiful.
that's a big thing that I learned, and I recognize that with a lot of my clients too, because a lot of the people I work with clearly are going through the same things I've gone through, or we're all mirrors for each other, right?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are like the biggest things that you see with your clients as far as like things that they bring to you?
I would say the
Like,
biggest, yeah, relationships for sure. I work with a lot of empaths, so
Mhm.
yes, it's the piece that we just talked about, but then it's almost the piece of when you've lived your life living for other people, right? Like this is how I'm supposed to show up to receive love. This is how what I'm supposed to do to be validated. This is even what I'm supposed to do to earn a paycheck. We think we know what we want, but we actually are so clueless as to what we really want because we've programmed ourselves to want things that are wired to receiving validation or receiving love or success or whatever it may be. And so a lot of what I do is kind of rock people's world in getting them to a place where they realize what they thought they wanted wasn't what they wanted all along and bring them into that actualization of their true self. And what would it really be like to follow a pursuit or a passion? Or maybe there was something that they wanted and they watered it down. How do we surge it back up again? Right. So it's really that encouragement and that acknowledgement and that ability to go to that deep place that unfortunately just gets so buried in our lives, like that deeper part of us, that part of us when we were really little and we had an imagination, or that part of us that every now and then gets that intuitive hit. We need to lean into that inner self, that deeper you. And so that's really the crux of what I do is bringing people like back home to themselves. And then now that you're home, okay, let's start unpacking. And that's why I love astrology, because astrology will help you see like, oh, this is actually what your soul put in your suitcase for this life. You've just literally like left it at baggage claim. So now that we've retrieved it, let's open up the suitcase and like let's actually see what you're packing here or like
yeah,
what you brought.
that is so cool. I mean, I am obsessed with like I just think it's so cool, just the guidance. And it's so validating. Like
Hmm.
I think, and I'm sure like you looked at my chart, but like one
Yeah.
of the things that I learned, and both Western and Vedic, two different people that I saw, both said the
Yeah.
same thing. The strongest thing in my chart, the number one was like Jupiter in something, which
Mhm.
is real estate.
Yes, it is. I saw that too. I was going to point that out. I was like, yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
connected. How you make money is real estate.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it was like, I will always be successful, blessed, all of that stuff. And it's just validating because, for my entire life, that's all I've ever wanted to do. Like that is just, I feel like it's literally a part of me.
Yeah, it
Now,
is. It
now,
is. And yeah, and I love it. And two, like Capricorn is very New York City. So your Jupiter's in Capricorn if we're following Western.
oh,
So from that perspective, like that right there, like New York is such a Capricorn, climb the ladder to success, like corporate, all of that stuff, right? So that right there shows you're where you're supposed to be. But what I love about your chart beyond like, okay, yes, you're supposed to be in real estate, but like your Mercury is in Aquarius. So you're going to be rebellious. There's certain right? Like you are. You're going to be rebellious and you're going to disrupt things. And I think you had to and I think that's why you had the journey of not standing up for yourself because you had to learn how to stand up for yourself so that you could be the real rebel that you're meant to be.
holy shit, I got goosebumps.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
disrupting. Like it's like I don't want to just be here to be here. Like
Mm-mm.
that's beautiful for those, but like what really like has like the fire in my soul is seeing something and like how can I make this better? Yeah, I don't even do yeah, seeing something and make it better,
Yeah.
how can I like use my brain
Mhm.
and make something like and I've always been like that even as a kid. I'd go into math class and I was always like a very like top student
Mhm.
scholastically
Uh-huh.
and I would be given a math problem and it
Mhm.
was the funnest thing. I loved
Yeah.
it. Right?
Because it was a puzzle.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
puzzle.
Yeah.
I did this.
Yeah.
And I was a very like social kid.
Hmm.
So I didn't really like listen to the lesson necessarily.
I was the
But
same way.
really
Yeah.
that I
I
love that.
always did, like, I always found the different pathway. I'm like, I will get
Yes.
the grade I need to get, but I'm not going to go the linear path. I'm going to like do this little hack over here or find this way or go this route. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly. And like I feel like it translated to so many things like as we get older. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
this math problem, I'm like, okay, I don't really understand this, but this is
Yeah.
like actually how like you could do it and with
Yeah.
art and with everything. So I just think it's
Hmm.
so cool.
Yeah.
Are there anything that you see with like our chart that are like similar where you're like, oh, this is
Yeah, what was I gonna say that I really liked about also too, it's funny because I'm talking about disruption. There's literally someone like hammering next door. So we love it. I feel like whenever like we get to the meat of something, spirit like gets a little noisy. It's like boop boop boop. So
yeah.
ignore the knocking. But one of the things that I really like about your chart, because I'm definitely more Leo, but I have a lot more Leo, a lot more Virgo aspects like from the headspace. So like what I like about you is like I said, you're the rebel. You're the one that's like, let's do things different, but like let's do it my way and let's do it from a future perspective, which I also jive with as well. Where our charts are really similar though, is like your North Node is in Libra, your Libra rising. That's the core of like how I run my life is the Libra way. But to do the Libra way, it's interesting because we want things to be balanced and we want things to be fair and we want everybody to win. So it's like, how do we find that dynamic where we can create that balance and we can create that synergy? And like in some ways, it's why we're so successful because people trust us. But then other times we have to watch out for like not looking at other people that are like giving people too much credit or getting mad that like, oh, these people are not being truthful or they're doing things kind of shady and just kind of like let that go and just be like, how can I just keep showing up for me? Like you and I were definitely both here to like learn relationships and like
Mhm.
learn relationships like so that we could learn ourselves. And so I really like see that as well. And I think that's why we both gravitate towards like inner child work, spirituality, astrology, things of that nature. Cause it's like, oh, here's a framework to understand me so that I can understand the world and then I can freaking thrive in it.
100%. That is so on point.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's like really interesting. And then I was looking at, so have you ever done astrocartography before?
Not like properly.
Okay. Yeah. Like kind of just like scrolled around a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'll show you your map. I'm going to show you your map. So basically what we do with, for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, if you listen to the podcast, you know. So astrocartography, I also call it astro mapping. Basically what we're doing is we're going to the moment you were born We're going back in time and we're opening up the cosmic sphere of that time. And we're looking up at the planetary system as it relates to our Earth. And we're going to imagine that that moment that you took your first breath, we're going to pull that birth chart down. We're going to pull all the planets down. And we're going to imagine that the planets turn into these like little tiny balloons. And these little balloons land on the Earth. And so wherever those balloons land, we call them the zenith point. Then that becomes the most saturated of the Earth where that planet is embodied. Then from that zenith point, lines come out and we follow those planetary lines like a tracking system to then figure out like, why does this place do this for you? Or the geography of that area, or why is it that you step into some places and you just feel alive or like you feel like you know what you're doing? And then other places you go and you're just like, I don't get it. Everyone loves blah, 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 London and not a fan, right? So it can help like give us meaning to where our places in the world are. And what's cool about astrocartography too is you don't even have to go to those places. Like you could literally, like your Jupiter goes through, well, it goes through like South Florida and like some other places. I think I want to say it actually, we'll open it up. But for
Yeah.
example, like you could land a deal that's like very Jupiter-like with someone from a place where Jupiter is, and you don't even have to go there, right? Or like I have a client, her Venus is like right in Italy, and she's like, "Oh, my husband was born in Italy." I was like, "Of course he was," right? So like he's your little like Venusian prince. But if we look, and we can look, you do have energy around New York. Let's do it. Okay, so I just use astro.com. Anyone can use it. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
So this is your map. So basically those bubbles that I was telling you about, those zenith points, when we zoom out, you can kind of see them here. You have a lot clustered around India, Australia, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific.
So zenith points are the little circles.
They're little circles. That's where like the planet would land if it became really micro and just like dropped
Oh.
itself down. Yeah. So there was that. And what's interesting is your Venus is literally right below Hawaii. Have you ever been?
No.
You need to go to Hawaii. So Venus, literally, in your Venus in Aries, maybe
Oh, shit.
that that's where it gets popping. Is literally just south of Hawaii. So
And what does
that's
that mean?
hmm.
What does that mean?
So essentially, if you were to go to Hawaii, especially the mainland, I mean, look, here's Hawaii. Here's where Zenith was hanging out when you were born. You probably would feel more of the Venusian energy, but like in a way that you really want to. Like you said, it's like kind of manic and all over the place. And I'm sure if you look at your PowerPoint presentation, you can kind of track clues of like where it's worked for you, where it hasn't. I have a feeling in Hawaii, like all the ways that it has worked for you would be amplified
Oh,
in these positions, or it'd be like a good place to get married or like take a honeymoon or just have like a beautiful self-care experience because you love yourself too, right?
funny. Actually, one of my best friends is from Hawaii. She was
Of
born there.
of course. There you go.
I
So we
love.
love it. So yeah, so that's kind of showing that synergy right there. But what I wanted to point out was New York, which was interesting. So you were born in New York and you're currently in New York. It's your Chiron line. Do you know about Chiron?
Don't.
Okay, so Chiron is known as the wounded healer.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you're like,
Uh,
oh,
I've heard that
yeah.
line.
You're like, now we're talking. Now we're talking. So, what's interesting in astrocartography, if a line is curved, it's new to you. If it's up and down, it's more familiar. So, like your Jupiter line, for example, is up and down. It's familiar to you to make money. Like you've probably made money in past lives. Like money isn't really your pain point per se. Not that there isn't stuff to learn with it, but like at the end of the day, you can figure out money and how to expand. But then the wounded healer is curved and being born on your Chiron line, and your Chiron line is in Libra, and it makes a pairing with your ascendant, which is Libra rising. So living on your Chiron line means that literally like this is the hub where you came to learn your lessons. It's also connected to your North node, which is Libra. So like New York is the hub where you literally transform and you find basically the ultimate relationship with yourself. And I know I said this already, but like as you transform into the best relationship with you, other people get to experience that. The more expressed that you are, the more other people feel like they have permission too. Because living on your wounded healer line doesn't mean that you're constantly going to, like, look, we're going to be healing our whole life, right? There's always going to be something to learn. That being said, though, there comes a point where it's like, okay, the bigger lessons or like the dark night of the soul that you went through, like that's not going to be all the time, right? That's not going to be every day. And eventually the hope is that after you do go through a dark night of the soul, and I know you're wrapping up your Saturn return as well. I don't know if you know that.
No, no, wait, have I started it?
Yeah, so you started it. We'll talk about Saturn return in a moment. I feel like there's a lot of stuff, but like essentially with the wounded healer line, once you've kind of done enough healing, eventually you become the healer of that space. So you take that as you want. It could be literally like, okay, great. Now I'm going to be the shaman of New York, or which you are in a way, right? Or it's like by me being me, I give people permission to be themselves as well. And
Mm.
that is healing, right? By showing up for my truth, by being the rebel, by expressing myself, by taking a situation like what you do with commercial real estate, which is considered to be more of a different audience that works within that space. You're like, I'm going to innovate it. I'm going to make it futuristic. I'm going to tap into what I believe the needs are now. That's also healing. It's healing for you, it's healing for the industry, and it's even healing for the city. Like, I feel like we also live places that also need to be healed. So like you're also like in the process, like giving Manhattan a little medicinal magic too.
I love that. That's incredible. I've always felt called to express, you know, my experience as somebody who I love being like sexy or, out
Yeah.
there and feminine. And I've really never understood the pain points of like, being that, but like not being able to be smart. It never
Yeah.
made sense to me. So, this is it's very accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool. It's just like another tool that I just thought I would like show your way. And then we can chat Saturn return really quickly.
I love
Um,
the fact that this is New York too, because
I like knew I was like, there's gonna be something right through New York. There has to be. Like I knew when I pulled up your map. Because it's not always, some people can be places and there's nothing going on, which is fine too. But I was like, oh, there's gonna be something.
that is very intuitive of you too. Like even like I've gotten like letters and notes from like other women, like other than Instagram DMs. Like for someone to
Yeah.
send me a letter, like
It's a
leave it
big
at my
deal.
door, like, and it's like I'm like, what? And it was, I mean, I probably have it somewhere. I think I
Mhm.
put it away. But it was like from somebody in the corporate world. And she was like, thank you for like showing me that like I can be like sexy or I can like be out there and I can be fun and it doesn't mean that I'm not smart. Like it
Right.
doesn't and I think that like if I had to go through that I was like I've been
Yeah.
knocking on this door to bang it open and
Yeah.
like totally happy to just like continue doing that and it makes it gratifying when there's
Yeah.
women that go through it.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, breaking the mold is healing. It really is, and giving people permission to be different is also really healing too. It's like you don't have to box yourself in. You don't have to wear that suit if you don't want to wear that suit, right? Like again, know your place, whatever that might be, but like don't be afraid to push the envelope a little bit or make it a little bit more edgier. Or really at the end of the day, it's just making it more you. I think that's what it always comes down to. It's like, how can I make this more me? Because if I make it more me, then that's going to magnetize my experience. And then that's going to attract what it is that I want. It's less about worrying about, I got to get really specific around what I want. It's more like, I just got to get down with me. And the more down with me I am, the more that magnetizes. And then whatever frequencies or whatever it is that I quote unquote need or want or desire, they're right there. Of course they are.
Yeah, they are. And it's so funny because like even like the cover, I don't know, everyone has a different cover photo on Netflix.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I was like, because sometimes I'll do things on the show and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh crap, why did I do that? Like everyone does,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And that day for that cover shoot, like that was like such a random day. It was out of
Uh-huh.
nowhere. I ended up changing my outfit. It was a quick scene, bada bing, bada
Yeah,
boom. And when I tell you I did not get my makeup done and I did not have my hair done,
sure.
and it was such a random scene. I bought that outfit 15 minutes before we shot that opening scene. It was
Hmm.
something else. And I remember I was like, oh shit. I was like, what's Ryan gonna think? I was like, I'm in a crop top. And then I remember like he like FaceTimed me like right before the show aired, and he was like, Jade, I was going to show you. And I was like what?
Yeah.
And then he showed me like the different covers, and one of them was that, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
shut up. I was
Of
like,
course.
no way.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously the algorithm's different for everyone, but I think seeing how many people like that was the algorithm for them, I was like, whoa. I was like, this is what? This is like surreal.
Right? It just goes to show like we are in control and we're not in control, and let yourself be surprised by it all, you know?
Yeah,
Um, but
totally.
yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. But I love that with that. Oh my gosh, I had a funny moment when you talked about Zara. Because so I have a dog and I rescued her and her rescue name was Azaria. But like and as one does, I contacted an animal psychic to connect with her.
Love that. That is
Right.
iconic.
Yeah, so if you need a pet psychic, let me know. She was actually on the show too, Eileen.
Oh my God.
So
I'll watch the episode.
yeah, yeah, she's incredible. So and she's even the one that says like call them your animal, not your pet, because they're not your pet. They're not, they're an animal and they need to be respected. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I rescued Azaria, she was 9 and just had gone through some things. So I wanted to connect with her. And one of the things that Eileen brought up was if you're open to it, shift her name because her name is still attached to her old life. And then sometimes too, if you're correcting her, even though you're not trying to be mean or anything, she might register that correction to the old trauma. She could get triggered, all these different dynamics. So I was like, all right, I'm open. I wasn't a huge fan of the name anyway. So I started playing around. I just kind of started yelling out names and whatnot. And the one that she liked is Zara. And so, which I love, she's totally Zara. It's the best. I looked it up and it's like fruitful lioness. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my little fruitful lioness. But that being said, I do not shop at Zara. I do not like Zara clothes. So when people like ask her and they're like, oh, like the store, I'm like, no, like my animal.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Oh my
just
gosh. Really the best.
no offense to anybody that loves Zara the store, but I just thought it was funny because I'm always like, no,
Yeah.
I didn't name her after the store. I don't shop there.
Honestly, fair. Like, love Zara, your dog.
Yeah.
Look, it was funny because like that scene, it was something that like it was like me beginning to like get more of like who Jade is
Mm.
again, because like in a marriage, I molded and like that was me, my choice,
Yeah.
but like like who I am, like my fam, like my family is like very like fashion forward. They're very
Mm.
like I can't be seen with them, and my hair is like not done up. My
Mm. Yeah.
dad's my mom too. My mom like will fix myself. Like they're very like aesthetics is very important to them, and
Sure.
that's okay. So it's funny because like as I was going through all of this stuff, I was like, okay, like I need to like go back to my roots, like, and that's why like I'm in Upper West Side now. Like I was like,
Mm.
I need to like touch like my family again because I
Yeah.
haven't been with them. I need to like hang out with them. And I was like, wait, and then my cousin was actually the one who she mentioned something about like the Zara thing, and I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And
Yeah.
then I'd set it off camera, and then they were like, Jay, that's really funny. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, like it is. I was like,
it
okay.
was.
And it's just look, it's not like a
No.
price thing.
No.
It's more of like a creativity thing.
It's about the aesthetic. Yeah. Hmm.
It's like, you can get something at Bloomingdale's for the same price. You
Sure.
can especially in New York, like,
Yeah.
there's like 260 sample sale. There's all these things that like
Sure. Even thrifting, there's great.
look good.
I'm a big fan.
Like what I'm wearing. I think these are thrifted.
We
Dolce and
love
Gabbana.
it. Love it. Yeah.
And this is, I think, from 260 sample sale.
See, I love it. It's more fun that way.
It is, and I just like bizarre
Hmm.
things like this, like so basic, like, but like it
Yeah.
was just a funny line. I can't believe they used it. It's
Because
like,
it was
oh
funny. And look, it's okay. It's okay to like, yeah, it to jab a little because it's part of who you are and it's not offensive. It's just it's okay to be like have those like little quirky moments or just
yeah,
show that side of you like, yeah, I have an opinion on this and
I
I'm
mean,
going to own it.
yeah, but also too, like. know that I'm not like a very like I say everything with intention.
Mhm.
Like, I called her after and I was like, hey, FYI, I was like, you should get a partner with Zara, a partnership with Zara. I was like, you're welcome
Yeah,
to use this. You're welcome. You see,
there you go.
I would, no matter what,
It
look, like,
always works out. It always
yeah,
comes together.
I always, despite everything happening in the show, like I always had love for Chloe,
Yeah,
even though we were fighting, still do, like I hold space for everyone in my life.
of
And
course.
I was like, okay, like I'm gonna jab you a little bit, but get your bag.
Yeah, and look, it's part, I also believe like anything, it's part of the human experience, to gossip a little bit, to, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just part of it. And so it's okay. And you can, again, make light of it. And I do hope she gets a brand deal out of it.
I was
I won't know if she does because I wouldn't see it, but
every time, like, oh my God, at our premiere party,
Mhm.
like they played a little like teaser clip.
Yeah,
And it's so funny because literally everyone afterwards, they were like, Jade, they're like, I'm wearing Sephora. I was like, okay. I was
no,
like, okay, I forgive you.
it's fine. It's fine. You do you, as long as you feel fabulous, as long as it's giving you what you need to have.
Yeah, yeah. But the
Then you're
fashion
good.
on the show overall, I think everyone did such an amazing job.
For sure.
Like it
Yeah.
was professional, it was fun, it
Hmm.
was flirty.
Yeah.
Like everyone asked me, they're like, yeah, like do you guys have like a budget?
Hmm.
Like, no, I'm like, we just
Improvise. Yeah.
we improvise. We're going to Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom and God knows whatever else we're ordering online. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
madhouse.
No, I get it. I love it though. I mean, I think, fashion's just another way to express yourself, who you are. And it changes so much too. At least for me, like I'm always changing my outfit because I feel like I'm changing my mood. I'm like, well, this doesn't
Yeah,
meet my mood right now.
yes, exactly. I love your necklaces that you have
Oh,
on right
thank you.
now.
Thank you. This one, oh my gosh, this one's really fun. Because again, I really try to buy from real humans if I can. Clothing is a little bit harder, but I feel like for jewelry, yeah, these were made by women I met. But I was at this underground rave in Austin, and this woman had like a jewelry booth, and I was over at the booth, and there was this guy who was like looking at necklaces, and he was like, "Will you help me?" And I was like, "Of course." So we found a necklace from him for him, and then he was like, "All right, now pick one for you." So I picked this one.
I love that.
And this woman, I can't remember her name, but she's a human design reader too. So
Wow,
like, we
that's
love that.
okay. That is
Yeah. I love when your pieces can have a story and that story can also be like supportive of someone. I
a
think that's a
hundred.
cool part of fashion too,
Yeah, I agree. I think like the things that like the jewelry too, like I'm the same way.
especially jewelry. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like from I think this is my grandfather's. It's a little mezuzah.
I love that.
I wore it. So for our premiere party, I like repurposed my wedding dress into
Smart.
a dress. And I was like, I'm gonna like redesign my life and I'm gonna redesign my dress and I'm gonna fucking own it. And I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? Like I like pay a lot of respect to like my family. So I have this and then obviously I have my engagement ring and my wedding band, which I still don't know what I'm gonna do
Yeah.
with that. Yeah. And then my grandfather was a Freemason, so I have his Freemason ring
I
on.
kept noticing that ring, to be honest. That kept standing out to me. I was like, what is that? Wow.
Yeah,
That's,
it's like a real Freemason ring. It was his. Do you know about Freemasons
I
at all?
do. Do you want to share a little bit about it for people that don't know?
Okay, yeah. So
I
like
mean, I know it's a
honestly,
kind of a big tale, but I'd love to hear.
yeah, I don't know too much about it,
Okay.
but Freemasons, it's a secret society. It's a high secret society. I think it originated in New York, maybe.
It did from my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mhm.
it's men only. And it's just very, very secretive. If you're a Freemason, you're not allowed to tell people that you're a Freemason, but they only go to guys. It's a lot of like family lines. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you know anything more about it?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's the basis of it. I was curious if you knew anything more about like his role in particular, but what's cool too, like if you go to a New York or San Francisco or any city even, like a friend pointed it out in like Charlotte, you'll see the buildings, like that emblem is on the buildings where they meet, but it's like in random spots. It's not like, literal like going into a Marriott hotel. You're like, okay, this is a Marriott. It's not like they're like Freemason, you know? But it's like that emblem is kind of like etched into the building as like, this is one of our like little secret points. But then even as far as like, I know like there were secret passageways to even get in and like just everything was just very hidden, very secretive. I think good things happened. I think maybe not so good things happened in those spaces. My feeling is always it's like a mix. I think it was kind of like, you know, like the male version of like a witch
Mhm.
group, if you will, where I think they worked on wealth and mastery and becoming better people. And then within that, there was probably people that were greedy and not so great either. But I have a feeling your family line was like good with it. It feels good. I mean, like I said, I kept being drawn to your ring in a really good way. So I think, you know, I feel
Mhm.
like he might have been part of like a really good chapter, if that makes sense.
I mean, my grandfather, and he passed away when I was very young,
Mm.
but and both my father too, and my mother, but we'll talk about them first, but like always very like giving back, like always very much about like the public and wanting to help those in need and all of that stuff. So, I mean, I thought it was really funny because I didn't even know that this really, like, we still had this. And, um, and it was just like timing of like me remembering it and then being
Mhm.
like, wait, I was like, where is this again? And then after that, I was like, wait, I was like, it's kind of like the irony of me remembering it. And then I'm also in an industry where
Yeah.
like I've really had to earn my respect and I'm still, pushing for that respect and it is still a boys world and it's
Yeah.
funny because the lines it's always been men 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 and then I'm an only child. I have a half sister but like
Yeah.
I was raised an only child and for context she's older than my mother so
Okay.
only
Sure.
and it was just like my father wanted a boy, but he got a girl and like had to learn the business sense. I had to learn like the savviness. And I was just like, it means this is like my favorite piece of jewelry in the entire world. Um, because it just, I think means to me that like I am representing both a badass businesswoman, like I can do anything a
Yeah.
man, can do. I can learn from it, I can
Yeah.
succeed from it, and I can freaking like own it.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And what I love too, it's on your Jupiter finger. So our index finger is governed by Jupiter. And we've been talking a lot about Jupiter. So when we
Oh,
wear jewelry on certain rings, it amplifies different qualities. So right now I have so middle finger is actually Saturn. So middle finger is Saturn. Your ring finger is actually the Sun and Venus, and then pinky is Mercury, and then the thumb is the ego, like me.
oh.
But when we wear jewelry on our
Funny,
index,
the
yeah.
wedding is not
Oh, that
that.
is interesting. The wedding band is on your ego. Is that your, wait, is that your left hand? Or your right?
My left.
Your left. Okay. So it's still the feminine, but so left is feminine, right is masculine.
Okay, so what would
Yeah.
that like mean that it's
Yeah, that you decided to put it on the left thumb. I would say that it's you recognize that you're still moving through it. Like
yeah.
you're taking ownership of it, like, but you're still moving through it. There's still some uncertainty. You're not 100%, which I think that would make sense, right?
With this, like I think like
Mhm.
I just don't know what I'm gonna do with the ring. Like it's
Yeah.
still I'm in the process of figuring that out because
Yeah.
it was it's you know, being married young, it has a big effect on your brain, I
Oh,
think.
totally, totally. It's not, none of this is linear, it's layered. So just keep putting it out there that you want to have it figured out and to know what to do. And when you know, you'll know. And
Yeah.
then
I have
you'll,
some ideas.
yeah.
I have some ideas. Maybe I'll
Mhm.
save them for content or season two or you know.
Yeah. You'll know. You'll know. There's no, and then look, at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. It's however whatever feels right in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like the Freemason on your Jupiter finger, especially with the Jupiter being tied to real estate and New York. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the Freeman it was so cool. I was like,
Hmm.
this is so me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's an awesome piece. So we love that. Love all of it. Okay. The last thing I'll share with you real quick is the Saturn return. So the Saturn return, it's your Saturn is in Pisces, and it's Pisces at 25 degrees. And so that means Saturn's been in Pisces for the last 2 years. And whenever we have our Saturn return, it's kind of like the planet Saturn. Saturn's like our daddy who like wants to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to. And so when we're going through a Saturn return, it happens every like 25 to 30 years. Saturn kind of comes knocking and is like, hey, like Jade, remember like you wanted to learn relationships in this life? Remember you said you wanted to do this? Remember you put this in your suitcase? Well, it's time to like really put a spotlight on it. So a lot of individuals, especially when they have like the dark night of the soul, they're technically in their late 20s or in that period of, people call it a quarter life crisis, but a lot of times it's connected to the Saturn return. And it's the hope is that, okay, you're just kind of getting going here. You're becoming an adult. You're getting your legs. What needs to be cleaned up now? That's how I
Mm.
like to look at it, right? Like, what is it that you came here to do in this life? What what contractual relationships did you agree to? And where may some of those contracts need to end? Where do they need to be restored? And where do you need to kind of come back home, return, right? It's called Saturn return back to you and what you came here for. And so it's a 3-year process because, as you know, this stuff doesn't change or shift overnight. And the peak of your Saturn return, I wrote it down. The peak of your Saturn return is April of 2025. So right after your birthday. And then it'll pretty much be done 3 months after that. So you have like a little less than a year left.
No, thank goodness.
Usually I found I was living in New York during mine, and I found once I got through the first 2 years, year three was actually really fun. And I found that I made a lot of strides and I felt like I was being rewarded by Saturn because it was like, okay, I took the first 2 years seriously. And that's when I was like starting my coaching business and like wanting to move it forward. And I felt like I was just connecting with the right people, like making moves. And it felt like, okay, you are back on track. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So we're going to help you. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I see for you now. And especially too, even with like the show coming out during Cancer season, which is your midheaven, and our midheaven is kind of like the spotlight of who we are. So it's like, I think this is like a really cool turning point for you. I
That
really
is
do.
that is so cool. That's so cool to like hear all this stuff too. It's
Yeah.
it's very like it's very validating.
Good.
It's funny. I didn't mention this in the beginning. I probably should have, but I'd seen actually with the shaman I was with at the time. My first session with him was actually breaking a soul contract. And guess what that soul contract was? It was I'm here to serve others, but it's at what is the extent of hurting myself. So it was like, hey, Jade, you did it. You did a great job.
Yep.
Now it's time to look after yourself. And
Totally.
it's massive. I mean, I've just seen, and now, it's like I'm more cognizant of, okay, I can balance it. So
Yeah.
exactly what you said is very, very on point.
I love that so much. Yeah, a lot of times people will look back when their Saturn return was if they didn't know they were going through it. And it's so easy to see the parallels and to see how, whether we realize it or not, we were being led and we were being guided,
Yeah.
which, yeah, in your case, as long as you're open and aware of it, right? And look, with astrology or with anything, if the patterns are supporting you, it helps, but there's always a right time to change, right? If you feel called now, it doesn't matter what's going on in the cosmos or anything, like just go for it, right? Like just take the next step and you will be supported.
Yeah. I try to do that. I'm like, okay, like I have this idea or I have this, I have that. I'm like, let me just do it now. Let me execute it. I like, sometimes I'm like, okay, am I taking too much? Am I doing too much? But
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, Jade, breathe. Just breathe, meditate, like listen to something calming, take a walk. It's all gonna be okay. It's all gonna work.
Always,
And let
always.
it go to the universe.
100%. The one thing that the healing journey does not need is for you to be hard on the process.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm learning still,
Mhm.
it's all of the stuff with all of these success of the show is incredible. It is sometimes, a lot as far as like, making sure that you do everything right. And, you know,
Sure.
like it's so funny because it's like we live in a culture that it's like it is like very much like a culture that like thrives off of like the drama and
We
the
love
this.
it.
That.
Mhm.
Oh, a hundred
I mean,
percent.
look at our presidential election. We love entertainment. even in
Yeah.
our politics.
Yeah, and it's great. So sometimes, you know, being in the midst of it, it is just kind of like trying to step back and being like, okay, like breathe. Nothing is permanent. This is entertainment.
Yep.
Like, are there things that are true? So I've been trying to like take care of like everything's been very positive on my end, but
Of
also,
course. Yeah, but look, my one girlfriend, she always says pain is pain. It's very easy to be like, oh, well, this person's privileged, so they don't experience this, or this person's here. And it's like, no, at the end of the day, like our experience is our experience. Pain is pain. And like, even if, on the surface, everything is technically fine, doesn't mean that you still don't go through things or still struggle. And it seems to me like you're doing a great job of having fun, staying composed, being easy on yourself, and then trying not to, and this is what I'm hearing from you right now, try not to get too ahead of yourself or too, and you're very futuristic, naturally, let yourself be, but don't get so far ahead that it like jams you up a little bit, especially with dating. Like, again, like to kind of circle back, have fun, do your thing. Like, I don't know if you go to like yoga anywhere or whatever, like I totally could just see you meeting them in the wild and then being like, let's get a drink, and then just having like yummy conversation and just
yeah,
enjoying that process.
yeah, it'll be fun.
Hmm.
We'll see
Yeah.
where that leads me, but
Hmm.
dating has been fun and like I love men. I think that's
Yeah.
my favorite sport, men.
They're the best. Especially when you like, if it is a sport, right? And you're like in that moment where you're like, ooh, like this is a good match, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're so present and you're vibing and it's just fun and connective and the conversation is flowing and they smell good.
Yes. Like I also like I also play tennis. Like
Oh, so
that's
there you go. Hmm.
and love and I kind of see a lot of things like I compare it to tennis because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, one on one. And I'm like, can you handle it? Like I can rally a little bit and we can be like, mid-level, like back and forth. But like I want to like be able to hit hard. Like I
Yeah.
want to give you a shot. Like, can you handle it?
I
And
like
I
it.
love playing tennis that way, trick shots, stuff like this, and like being able to play around with someone like that and see
Mhm.
like, hey, are you gonna give it back to me? I want to feel it.
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, that's your dude. That's how you'll know.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
we'll see.
And in the meantime, yeah, have fun, play,
Oh,
explore.
I
You are.
will.
Yeah.
Now I'm
I'm
like,
excited for you.
yeah, I'm like, okay, like I guess I like took a break from like Hinge, but now I'm like, okay, like should I like I don't know.
Yeah. I'm taking the summer off from the apps.
That's
Just
smart.
need a little break.
Are you on any other apps? Is there anything?
Um, so Bumble's always been good for me, actually. And I
Oh,
don't I
really?
don't know if it's I know a lot of people downplay it because like the woman has to reach out first, but I don't know. I think there's a part of me that's like, I'll initiate and then I want to see where you take it from here.
What's like the perfect date for you?
Ooh, the perfect date. Okay. Somewhere, well, if weather is working, I love the idea of like going to meet somewhere that's like maybe like rooftop or a little bit higher up, outdoors, going for oysters, getting a little dirty martini, and then just like getting to know them through that little experience. And then if that feels good, let's go for a walk and like maybe we go like find a little space to like talk and like people watch and then go from there.
Ah,
That's just like, yeah.
I love the oysters and martinis.
The oyster dirty martini first date. Well, here's the thing. If they're not into that, then I'm already like, I don't know.
Like, what do we have in
I know
common?
exactly. What are we going to eat and drink? How will we stay hydrated?
Yeah, with martinis, like, duh.
Yeah.
Conversation can't be the only thing being fed right now. Like,
No, no. So yes, that's a fun that for me is like one of my ideal first dates.
oh, okay. I'm taking some notes.
Yeah, I also never, at least now that I've dated a while, I don't kiss on the first date anymore. I stopped that. Like even if I am jiving with them, I mean, look, I'm not going to say I'll never if it's right, it's right. But overall, I don't because I want to walk away with the experience we had and not let like the dopamine or like you know, all the chemistry and whatnot kind of mess with my thinking. And it's not like a form of control, but it's just like, okay, I just met you. We had a great experience. I want to lean back and observe and see how I feel without that element. And then, you know, see what happens the next date. And then clearly by the next date, I want that to happen so that you can kind of reassess. But that's one of my other, I don't like to call it a rule, but and I think it makes them want you a little more. Like, wait, why didn't she? Why did she do the little like turn before she got back in her Uber?
Yeah,
Hmm.
100%. I
Yeah.
think that like no kissing on the first date. Like
No.
I think like a guy needs to like a guy likes to chase a little bit.
Yeah,
Likes to
totally. Yeah.
just do things
Let
like
them chase. Yeah. Let them be in charge. Let them be curious about you.
yeah. Also too, like I'm very transparent. Like I'm like, if guys like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, that's great. I have plans.
Mhm.
Someone wants to do something with me and I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
like you'll know. Like I'm like not married to you.
No,
Like,
no, especially at that point.
yeah,
Definitely not.
yeah.
Definitely not. No.
Give them a
Yeah,
little competition. Like
exactly. And also, like, what's the rush? Like, if it,
Aries, I'm like,
yeah, that is very Venus air. You're like, let's get a little spicy here. Let's turn this into The Bachelor
oh man. Oh,
or
that's
Bachelorette.
Bachelorette. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Would you, I mean, that's very Venus Aries being the Bachelorette.
yeah. Would I don't know. I've never watched it.
I went through a phase where I did. I haven't in a while. It
Hmm.
was, I just like observing people. So, if anything, it was entertaining in that way. But it was entertainment, right? Like, it wasn't like I had real key takeaways from it
Yeah. I
all.
just get confused with like remembering their name. That's like where I get confused
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I would like give them all nicknames.
I
Like
give them all nicknames anyway.
your suit man, your
Mhm.
green car man, your Heidi Klum man, your helicopter dude, like, you
Yeah.
know, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I love all the little nicknames. But yeah, it's and my thing too, look, if it's your person, there's no rush. So
Mhm.
just have fun, enjoy, savor it, all the
I love
things. So yay. So good. Well, it was so fun hanging with you. I'm glad we got to
it.
connect.
No, thank you so much for reaching out. Like this has been so fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, anytime I'm always available if you want to chat
I feel like if you
spiritual.
want to read my chart more for the audience, you can.
Oh yeah, totally. Honestly, if you want to read it and give like an overview, like,
You're like, I'm here for it. I'm here to be studied.
yeah, why not? I love my chart. I have a very
You have a nice
balanced
chart.
chart. Like I'm very confident about like my legs and my chart.
I love it. I love my legs too. They're fabulous.
You should.
So what do you want? I mean, well, people know you're on the show. What other takeaway do you want them to have from you, or how do you want people to stay in touch with you from here on out?
I think if it's one thing, I've always been called to, be someone that can represent that you can be beautiful and you can be sexy and you can be expressive and fun and you can also be taken seriously.
Hmm.
It's definitely difficult, you know, but having a balance and knowing that like sometimes it's good to be that way. And when you're expressive and you're enjoying leaving the house in something
Mhm.
that makes you feel good, it makes you show up better as well.
Yeah.
I had like the music video thing. Like
Oh, right.
I didn't want to be, sorry, this is a spoiler. I
No.
did not want to be in the music video. I was like, I
Oh,
just want to be behind the scenes. And
interesting. Okay.
you have to be in it. I was
Hmm. All
like,
right.
and but like the effort that I put into it, like I wouldn't have spent that much time if I didn't love it.
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
And we got a high price per square foot. So I think
Hmm.
whenever you're able to just like be yourself in any capacity, not just after 5 p.m., but
Hmm.
whenever you're able to like integrate your whole personality in your daily life, it
Hmm.
feels really good and it's empowering and it's beautiful. And we
Yeah.
have life. You might as well just like live it. And then how people can keep in touch with me.
Mm.
Um, my DMs are being flooded right now, but I am looking and replying to all of them. And I love every single message. Like, so you guys can DM me on Instagram. My
Mm.
Instagram is my first and last name, which is Jade Shenker. I'm also on TikTok. I go on lives like almost every day.
How
And
fun.
through email, I love,
That's how I found you.
yeah, I love every single beautiful email that
Mm.
I've gotten, business wise, just let me know. And anything like brand, work, partnerships, things like that. I do have a website, which is jadeshenker.com. And
Great.
you guys look through stuff. It's a very simple, very easy website. You don't have to make that many decisions.
That's true. I actually really liked that. It was very streamlined.
Yeah, very
It was
easy.
really streamlined. And I felt like everything was just like, ooh, these are like her beats. Like this
Mhm.
is like the best of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing. But
Cool.
thank you again for having me and
Of course.
sharing space with me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jade. We so appreciate you. Yay.